What's up, guys? This will be the first video lecture, if you will, over some things that we'll talk about in our U.S. history class, especially on this first day. I'll try to keep these video notes, these video lectures, no more than 10 to 12 minutes, so I'll try to keep them fairly short. And since we're kicking off week one today pretty much, we'll spend a day or two on the founding fathers and the foundations of our country. Our country kind of was established. And then we'll move into, probably by Wednesday or within a couple of days, the movement of our population westward. And so we'll be moving from an agricultural economy to a more, I guess you could say, urban or industrial economy. But obviously at the beginning in the foundations of our country, most of the people made money off of agriculture. And with that being said, most of our population lived within, 20, 30, 40 miles of the East Coast because, they didn't quite know what was west. And most of their comfort zone was sitting on those ports and in those harbors that were on the East Coast because that's where they could make their money and their livelihood with trade. But that's more later on in the week. What I want to do today is simply talk to you about some founding principles of the United States, of our democracy, and the formation of our country. And the first thing that I'll talk about is popular sovereignty. It's a big word. You'll see it spelled on the form, on the notes that you guys need to fill in. And so I've got an accompanying note form, a note sheet that you will submit through Google Forms that will go along with the notes so that you can do your notes as we do these video presentations. And they're always in the same area on Canvas, so you'll be able to see them. But the first word, the word popular sovereignty, is a very important word because that word popular sovereignty basically means the people decide and the people have the power, not the government. And so one of the basic principles of a democracy and of the United States is that belief that the people and the states should have the power, not the federal government, and that the power should reside in the people. So as you see that word popular sovereignty, it basically and actually literally means the power to the people. The people have the power. And so that is a massive principle that we have founded our country on. Of course, you go through some of the founding fathers of like Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, which was basically a text message to Britain saying, you have not followed the rules that you set in place. And so the United States is out of here. And we weren't really even the United States at that point, but since King George and the British were not following and playing by the rules that they set forth, that the Declaration of Independence was a text message basically saying we're out of here. We want our independence. And you see, like on our dollar bill, a lot of our currency, but on I believe the dollar bill, you have on the back E Pluribus Unum. E Pluribus Unum literally means out of many, one. And so the belief that we are one nation made up of many people. And so you see the concept of plurality with the comment and with the inscription on the back of our currency, E Pluribus Unum. That's kind of an important concept. I'm looking at our founding fathers, really not going to go deep into most of the founding fathers, but one of them I do want to talk about is Alexis de Tocqueville, who had 5 principles of freedom. Alexis de Tocqueville's 5 principles of freedom are pretty good. One of them's kind of, he doesn't follow his own rules when it comes to equality, but the 5 principles that he believed in that our country should run on were individualism, which is pretty self-explanatory, the belief in the individual and individual initiative. Number 2 is populism. Populism literally means power to the people or the party of the people, made up predominantly of farmers back in the day, who were simple people who worked hard and were very independent and obviously individualistic. Egalitarianism. Egalitarianism means equalitarianism. So the word egalitarianism almost looks like the word equality. The belief that all should be equal. That's a very hypocritical statement, though, by him, because he also believed that slavery was okay. So a very hypocritical belief statement by him, saying that all should be equal, but he didn't really believe that for all people. He believed, obviously, in the belief of liberty, where people should have freedoms, individual freedoms. And the lastly has to do with the economy. He believed in something called laissez-faire, a French word that means leave it alone. He believed, and we still use this principle today, or we try to at least, that the government should not interfere with private business, that if you want to open up your own lemonade stand and sell your lemonade for $1, that's laissez-faire, meaning leave me alone and let me run my business and make my money. So this belief in very little government intervention when it comes to making a buck, which is what an economy is, making money. And so that's Alexis de Tocqueville's 5 freedoms, or 5 freedoms of a democracy. He's a founding father, and I do want to mention him. You'll need to know those 5. Pretty much it. I mean, I could talk about how Thomas Jefferson, and this was actually a quiz question earlier today on your attendance check. With Thomas Jefferson sending the text message that I call it the Declaration of Independence, and then fast forwarding 11 years, he wrote the Declaration 1776. If you fast forward 11 years, then you get the United States Constitution, which was in 1787. And so you have an 11-year gap there from 1776 to 1787. And the question is, from the time that we declared our independence to the time that we wrote our Constitution, which is our government, how this country is going to operate, what happened? And the answer to that is, during that 11 years, after Thomas Jefferson sends his text message that I'm calling it, the Declaration of Independence, we go into Revolutionary War. King George sends troops over and we go at it. And we win that war with the help of the French, but we declare and get our independence and become what's called the United States of America with the original 13 colonies. They become the original 13 states. And what I want you guys to know that, before we adopted the United States Constitution, which we've actually kind of talked about already because we did the Bill of Rights activity where you had to pick 5 of your favorite rights in the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, we actually toyed with adopting the Articles of the Confederation. And we chose not to adopt the Articles of the Confederation and instead adopted the United States Constitution because the Articles of the Confederation gave way too much power to the states. And it would have led to a completely divided country where every state did their own thing and we would not be united. And so we instead went with the United States Constitution, which gave more power, federal power, to the federal government being the government that controls all 50 states. And, the things like being able to have a military, the things like being able to raise taxes and pay for things that we need in our country. So the United States Constitution is a much bigger document that gives more power to the federal government instead of all the power to the states, which the Articles of Confederation, that was one of the weaknesses. The Articles of the Confederation really wasn't a document that would have united all of the states or the colonies at that time. So that's a little bit on the difference between the 2 documents, the Articles of the Confederation, which we never adopted, and then the United States Constitution, which we actually have today, and it's sitting over my left shoulder back there. Of course, the United States Constitution starts with the preamble, which is we the people. So the whole document is based on we the people. It talks about the Constitution divides our country into basically 3 ways that we will organize our country, which is basically put into 3 different branches: the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. The legislative branch being the lawmakers, the ones that make law, and of course I'm talking about Congress. And then you have the executive branch, which is made up, of course, the president, the vice president, the president's cabinet, the White House, if you will. And then you have the judicial branch, which is, of course, our federal judges, the most popular being the Supreme Court, the 9 judges that can sit up there forever. They're not up there for a limit. They can stay there as long as they're alive, and they don't commit a felony, and they don't retire, of course. But they're the ones that uphold and look at laws that are passed and decide whether or not those laws are constitutional or not. That's what federal judges do, and that's our judicial branch. And so the Constitution divides our country into those 3 branches to run our country. So the Constitution is a very important document. Of course, at the end of it, it has the amendments, which has the Bill of Rights, which is what we have been talking about in here, which are very important to our lives: free speech, free religion, the right to peacefully protest or assemble, the right for a free press or media, the right to bear arms, the right to not have to speak. You have the right to remain silent, of course, the right to a jury trial, the right to an attorney, the right to not be cruel or unusually punished, and the right to not have your personal property searched or seized by the government. So these are very important, rights to us, and those are all found in our United States Constitution. I'll just kind of leave it at that. That's a lot that I've thrown at you in 10 and a half minutes, but that kind of sets up the founding document and the founding base for our country. We'll go more into that when I see you guys in person, but that's a good start to kind of kick off how our country started, a little 8th grade review for you guys. If you'll fill out your sheets for me, that'd be great, and you guys have a great day.